Well, welcome to this week's episode of the Fit Finance Session with me, Henry Elliston, Tim Webb, and Tom Senegals. Big week this week if you're an American. It's going to be the inauguration of the new President Biden. I'm struggling today. Donald Trump out. So we thought to discuss this, we'd talk about how Biden's policies are likely to affect the markets in the US in the short term and over the next 4 years. Obviously, he's got some very different views to dear Donald Trump. Tom, Tim, do either of you want to kick off on what you think might be happening and how the world economy is likely to fare with a Biden presidency?
Yeah, I think the easiest thing to pick off really is his more green approach to business and economics, I suppose, than Trump in particular. I mean, to kick things off, I think I was reading this morning, he perhaps even on his first day is going to strike off this key, it's a pipeline project that Trump has been backing massively ever since he came in, oil pipeline project, which Trump has been backing ever since he got in. And I think even on the first day, it's rumored that he's going to scrap that. Worth a couple of $1 billion in aid of this this view. So yeah, I think that's going to potentially be a kickstart. But yeah, I mean, I think clearly sort of ESG, sort of the more green investments, that kind of thing is going to benefit off the back of that potentially. But yeah, I mean,
Tesla continues to grow a bit further.
Yeah,
and I guess wall builders in Texas are going to be fearing for their jobs, perhaps.
Yeah, well, plenty of jobs in the Tesla mega factory, isn't there, for them? I think the key thing will be this stimulus package and how much of it gets through. They always say, well, it's going to be $2 trillion, and then there's negotiation and who it goes to and where it goes to. I think and that will lead to higher inflation. And now we're in this monetary policy 3, where effectively we're giving money direct to individuals, whether that's furlough payments or otherwise. And the new package should see $1,400 go to each American, so that's costing $465 billion. And then there's lots of specific stimulus, so some for vaccination programs, some for schools, state and local governments, but there's going to be a lot of money sloshing around, and yeah, that should be good for equities, less good for bonds. That's which we've been saying over and over the last 6
I mean, it's a massive stimulus package, isn't it? And come on, Rish, give me $1,000. I'll be quite happy with $1,000 in my pocket right now. But you know, you're right. And those sort of consumer companies over in the US are going to do so well. You'd imagine Amazon continues to rise on the back of it, and you know, the Walmarts and all that sort of stuff. And of course, I guess, you know, I think he's quite keen on putting a COVID relief system in, which Donald wasn't so keen on. But I guess given Biden's age, that's probably not so surprising. But you would also imagine then on the back of that, a lot of the medical stocks and stuff like that will start to inflate as well, more than they have been recently.
I think if you put it into perspective, I think the 2008 stimulus was 152 billion, and we've already done, I think there was, I mean, this is the States, but 700 billion in the States, and then now this 1.9 trillion. I mean, it's an absolute mammoth amount of money, and that'll be the same in the UK eventually. I think they're just waiting to see what's needed when is, or at least that's my view.
Well, in the UK. Well, I guess we find out in a couple of months.
Yeah,
in March. How do you think Biden's presidency is going to affect global markets? I mean, I've seen some comments that he's not going to be quite so friendly towards the Chinese, for example. You guys got any views on that, or how we're going to fare in the UK with our special relationship?
I think whilst China was a flagship Trump policy, I think it's widely known that was that will continue. I think they're not going to row back on that. I think it's just whether they manage it in a slightly different way. What that means for the UK, I think I mean, there was a big pro-Chinese approach when Cameron and Osborne were in town, and that's kind of watered down now with sort of all the Huawei debacle and things like that. I think it'd be interesting to see. I think Brexit will force England to kind of revisit its existing relationships, and whether that's a reason to pivot to Asia is probably likely. I think the old Commonwealth will be sort of touched up first, but I think you've got Biden saying if there's no sort of Northern Ireland peace process, then that will keep frosty relationships with them. Yeah, you don't know. I think they'll be just trying to create deals with who they can, but you don't really know what the systems are going to be post Brexit. I think it's too early to say, but at least there'll be opportunity for change, I guess.
Yeah. Tim, have you got any views on that?
Yeah, no. Well, I think we could expect. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if there were some early meetings going on, because of course it's not only what Biden's intentions are, but of course how the Chinese, specifically referring to the China agreement and what have you, is what they think of him as well, isn't it? In terms of what kind of man they perceive he is compared to their previous chap, obviously being Trump. And then arguably, I mean, I saw an article over the weekend of Biden, first US president with a stammer. And, you know, on the surface of it, he's a bit of a weaker man, isn't he? He sort of fumbles around. So you don't know how they're going to perceive him as a person in terms of his power capabilities and his ability to hold conversation in terms of getting what he wants for the country, compared to how Trump was. Because as much as, you know, Trump was poo-pooed in almost every angle, he was a more straight-talking and stronger character. So yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see what they think of him, but who really knows the answer to that?
Yeah, it was interesting, you know. You could see Trump standing up to someone like Putin, couldn't you? But I just a showdown between Putin and Biden has surely only got one winner.
Yeah,
I think most people would say Trump would take a boatload of cash and votes from Putin rather than stand up to him. But yeah, I get your
I think it'll be fascinating because these two guys have such different politics. Actually, they're both really other ends of the spectrum, aren't they? And to see how that actually now translates into economic fortunes over the coming years, I think it'd be really, really interesting to watch.
I mean, having said that, Biden is more of a centrist Democrat. He's not as extreme as, say, a Bernie Sanders or some of the far left. And I think ultimately that's why he's managed to get elected, because I know and you see the same in the UK. Regardless of your politics, Corbyn was too far. There's a middle ground. I think Biden hopefully can provide some continuity and some effective leadership, and they seem to have a bit more control of things. I think the next few months will be interesting in terms of Trump supporters and what you saw on Capitol Hill, but I think that will die down in the months to come.
Yeah, I tend to agree. That'll be noise, but actually, as soon as it's all been and done and dusted, it'll all come to an end. Unless, and I've been reading that Trump might now, his whole hotel empire is going to crumble because nobody wants to stay in a Trump tower. The PGA have said they're not going to play golf at Trump golf courses. So the only way for Trump now to make money, and he's sitting on a huge amount of debt as well, about £350 million worth, I think, of debt. So he's got to pay this off somehow. So there's talk now of him setting up his own media company. So you say the news around Trump might die down, but perhaps it won't do if he's got his equivalent to Fox News. Trump News coming to screens near you soon.
God help us. But yeah, I think as much as there's all this geopolitical stuff and it's interesting and it kind of maybe moves markets in one direction or the other, I think really, if you're in the UK, you just need to get your money in your pension, get your money in your ISA, and not batten down the hatches too much. I think, like we said, bonds might be getting a rough time in the weeks ahead, but I think it's just about cutting out this noise. It's good for topical conversation, but equally, just staying the course is the safest bet.
Yeah, very wise financial planning advice from Mr. Senegals. To wrap up this episode of the Fit Finance Sessions, thanks very much. We've had some really positive comments from some of you over the last week. So if you've got any more and you want us to talk about anything in particular, do let us know. But if not, until next week, thank you and bye-bye.